रूहों में उतरते हैं सदा मुल्हिम हक के अल्लाह से बंदे को मिला देते हैं रोज़े.
Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers, and welcome to Ramazan with MTA. Today from the MTA International Germany studios. On today's episode, we will again talk about important learnings from the Quran and hadees. We will also have some insight into some health issues, and we will have a delicious recipe for you to try during Ramazan. But of course, we will start with the recitation of the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذ قالت الملائكة يا مريم إن الله يبشرك بكلمة منه إن الله يبشرك بكلمة منه اسمه المسيح عيسى ابن مريم وجيها في الدنيا والآخرة ومن المقربين.
When the angel said, O Mary, Allah gives thee glad tidings of a word from Him. His name shall be the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, honored in this world and in the next, and of those who are granted nearness to God.
That was the recitation of the Holy Quran, and to speak about this verse, I welcome Murabbi Farhat Ghaffar Sahib. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam warahmatullah.
Murabbi Sahib, in this verse, Allah speaks about the Messiah, and this word Messiah is something that is used in Christianity and in Islam as well. Maybe you could explain shortly what Messiah actually means.
Well, the word Messiah has different meanings. Messiah is used for someone who travels a lot. It's a title. And I think this whole topic of Jesus, the second coming of the Messiah, this is a topic we can write a book upon. We can make a whole series out of it, you know it. So let's just focus on the word or the verse, this verse only. So the title of the Messiah has been used for Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam as well. But technically, if you think about it from a Christian point of view, this title does not suit Jesus alayhi salam, because Messiah is used for someone who travels a lot. Mm-hmm. And according to Christian belief, Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam, his ministry has been confined to only 3 years. Mm-hmm. And within that time period, he wasn't able to travel a lot. Only 3 years. Now, our community, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, we say that Jesus survived the crucifixion. Mm-hmm. He migrated, he traveled all the way to Kashmir. The Holy Quran even speaks about it. The Holy Quran says that Jesus and Mary were given refuge on high lands. And in that area, the high lands would only be this area, Tibet, Kashmir, that sort of area. And now you have two theories. One of them says that he was only, his ministry was confined to 3 years. And the other theory says that he lived for a very long time after the crucifixion. He was almost 120 years old when he passed away. Now, according to both theories, you tell me, which theory supports the title of Messiah?
Obviously, we would say the one by the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, which is also something that distinguishes the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat from other Muslims who have, again, a different belief about Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu salam, Jesus alayhi salatu salam. But I mean, this title is like something that supports very clearly the theory that we believe in.
Yes.
If we talk about the significance of this traveling of the Messiah, maybe you could elaborate on that a bit, because obviously the Messiah not only travels, but he also preaches the religion that he was given by Allah to the people along the way.
Exactly. Well, the thing is that Of course, the promised Messiah ﷺ in modern age did not travel the way Jesus did. But back to that point, once you have brought it, you have clarified it that according to our belief, in accordance to our belief, this title of Messiah suits Jesus ﷺ far more than the Christian point of view. So the thing is that before Islam, the prophets were not universal. They were not universal. They came to guide a certain or a specific nation, a certain amount of people, and they only came to specific areas. And then the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah the Almighty be upon him, he came, the only prophet who is universal, meaning for the entire mankind. And after he passed away, his Messiah came. Basically the prophet after him who was supposed to guide people and who did not bring a new law. His job was basically to wake up the Muslims, tell them that this is the pathway you have forgotten. And basically the same people across the globe who have forgotten the message and who have forgotten the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. This was basically the Messiah's job, that to spread that message all around the globe and wake up all the Muslims around the globe and to bring them back on that path which we have lost some 1,000 years ago. So as I said, this is a topic we cannot discuss in one or two episodes. Many books have been written upon this. I think Ahmadi Muslims debate and discuss this topic with other people, with non-Ahmadis on the daily,
time, yeah.
right? So, but yeah, as I said, I mean, the title of Messiah has been used for Jesus ﷺ in the Bible as well as the Holy Quran. Now you decide, or the viewers decide, which theory supports it more, the Christian theory or the theory of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, because the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat is the only one that accepts the fact and preaches it as well, that Jesus migrated all the way to Kashmir.
Which is also supported by some evidence that the science has uncovered.
Historians, scientists, yes,
it's
absolutely.
very important.
Yes.
And I think you've also mentioned the promised Messiah ﷺ, his message, which is basically the message of Rasul Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It also travels all around the world via all kinds of means. For example, MTA, on which this program is broadcasted right now. If we look at this, maybe you could elaborate on this prophecy that the promised Messiah ﷺ received.
Well, it was about the corners of the earth, that your message will reach the corners of the earth. And this is exactly what's happening. I mean, in this show, we have, alhamdulillah, we have such countries connected. And I think this is a very interesting part of our show, that, we've had the Philippines, we've had Japan, and this is, as I said, I mean, we've had Iceland as well. And these are places, I think a lot of Ahmadis probably haven't even visited those. And the ones that have visited those are probably not even aware that we have a proper mission there. And people started working there and started spreading the message of the promised Messiah ﷺ. And I think, as I said, this is one of the most beautiful parts about this show that I like, to show the people how in other foreign countries the job has been done. This is how things are, or this prophecy of the promised Messiah ﷺ is being fulfilled. We've had, Hazur sometimes, may Allah be his helper, mentions in his Friday sermons such incidents where people ended up converting just by watching MTA. I myself, as a field missionary, I have a few people. I have one family from Syria, and their family initially converted by watching MTA in Syria before the whole crisis, and very firm and very loyal towards the community, towards this cause. And if you think about it, when the time when MTA started, this was a time where Muslims, a lot of Muslims did not even think this far. There were Muslims with televisions who used to show different, series, dramas, movies, whatever. But the very first Muslim television that only, broadcasts Islamic shows and the things you can increase your knowledge with, that was MTA. So you can see where the minds of the Ahmadis are. They're fixed. And this is, we're trying our best to fulfill this prophecy. and this vision of the promised Messiah ﷺ.
Which is, of course, a blessing by Allah Almighty. Dear viewers, we would like to move on to the hadith part, because, as you just mentioned, we are trying to further the knowledge of people and to bring them more insight into the Islamic teachings. So we'll listen to a hadith.
عن وابصة بن معبد رضي الله عنه قال: قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: استفت نفسك استفت نفسك استفت نفسك. البر ما اطمأنت إليه النفس واطمأن إليه القلب، والإثم ما حاك في النفس وتردد في الصدر وإن افتاك الناس. Hadrat Wabisa bin Ma'bad, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that the Prophet of Allah, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said: Seek the guidance of thy soul, seek the guidance of thy soul, seek the guidance of thy soul. The virtuous deed is one whereby thy soul feels restful and thy heart contented. And a sinful act is one which rankles in thy soul and which contracts thy heart, even though the other people endorse it as lawful.
Yes, this hadith seems to give a very clear indication on how to decide which deeds are good deeds, which deeds are evil. And Murab said, maybe you could elaborate a bit about that.
Well, I think this, you and I were talking about this earlier as well, that this narration is quite interesting. And I think this is exactly what the difference is. Angels, for example, they've been given a task that they have to do things a certain way, and they're basically, their nature is forced to obey the command of Allah the Almighty. Animals, for example, have an instinct. A lion will hunt when it's hungry. If it's not, I mean, there's a very famous picture, I think a lot of people know about it on social media, how a lion and a zebra are drinking from the same pond. I mean, the lion is probably not hunting because it's not hungry, it's thirsty. So instinct is very important. And Allah Ta'ala has put an instinct, I think, in every being, everything that lives. But humans have this ability, Allah Ta'ala says this in Surah Shams as well, that فَأَلَمَهَا فَجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, that Allah Ta'ala has given the soul the ability to decide between right and bad. And I think no matter, it does not matter if you're Muslim or if you're religious at all. If you do something bad, if you take someone's life, if you steal something, if you lie, if you harm anyone in any way, you do feel bad. So this means Allah Ta'ala has put this instinct in every human being to a certain extent, and you do feel guilty. And since we're talking about Ramazan, I think this is also something we have to focus upon. I think everyone knows what's right and what's wrong, and Ramazan is there to practice. So I think everyone knows what's right and how to do it and how to get used to practicing good habits, good things, good deeds. So I think Ramazan is a month you should really take advantage of.
I think it's very interesting what you mentioned, because even people who haven't read about religion, many times if you read about criminals, or they're giving an interview, or people that are basically from a Muslim standpoint, they are not doing good deeds, very often they say that they had to force themselves, or they had to try not to listen to their inner voice that was telling them that they were doing something bad, and gradually they move away from that voice is tuned even more down, and so at some point they don't hear it anymore, and then they accept whatever evil deed they are doing. So I think this is very interesting. Is there any like tips, something that you can give our viewers, how to stay in tune, not just of course by clearly reading our teachings, but how to listen to that voice and be sensible when it tells us, even if because this is also mentioned in the hadith, even if the world thinks this is fine, but the inner voice tells you it's not, then maybe you should listen to it?
I think I do have an advice. Sometimes people go up to Hazur Agdas, may Allah be his helper, and they give him their notebooks, and they say, Hazur, please write something in it. So I've seen 2-3 friends of mine who have done this, and Hazur wrote, on 2-3 occasions, Hazur wrote the same thing. It's a very short sentence with such a deep meaning, which is if you think about the sentence Hazur wrote down, it's a summary of Islam. Hazur said, Khuda se bewafai mat karna, that do not betray God. This is taqwa. that do not betray God. And I think if you keep this sentence in mind, no matter what you do, no matter if you're alone, if someone's watching or not, and if you think that I cannot betray God because He's watching me, you will automatically do the right thing. So I think this is the advice. It came randomly into my mind, but this is something that was life-changing for me, reading this sentence. And just, as I said, just this sentence, you could write books upon it. This is the summary of Islam: fear God, taqwa.
Absolutely. Jazakallah for this very interesting insight. Moving on to the next segment of the show, dear viewers, I said it in the beginning, Murabbi Sahib has also mentioned it already. Another important part of our program is that we give you an international flavor, so to speak. We talk to different people from all over the world, and I'm very happy that I can welcome Murabbi Noman Rana Sahib from Mexico with me. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, Murabbi Sahib.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Murabbi Sahib, many people might have, of course, heard of the country of Mexico, but they are not really familiar with the country. So if you would give our viewers a short introduction to Mexico.
Jazakallah. Talking generally about Mexico, Mexico's northern part borders with the United States of America, and towards the south we have Guatemala and Belize. Just to give a sense of where Mexico is located. Mexico is the biggest Spanish-speaking country in the world, with a population of 130 million. And also with Spanish, there are also some local languages that are spoken by some indigenous groups. And generally speaking, the people are just wonderful, very respectful. There are incredible work ethics amongst the Mexican people. And sitting here in the capital of Mexico, in Mexico City, we have people from all over the world that come here to work, to live, and even in the universities, we have students from different parts of the world that have come here to study and attend the universities here. There's just so much that is not known about Mexico. For example, a lot of produce is exported from Mexico. We find many natural resources here, and there are many tourist locations as well that are visited by people from different parts of the world.
Okay, mashallah, that sounds really good. Murabbi Sahib, you mentioned how international the country actually is, and especially Mexico City. If you could tell our viewers a bit about how the Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya was established in the country of Mexico.
Jamaat started once back in late 80s with few members in Monterrey and few members in Mexico City. And there was even a very short trip, a historical trip of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi, Rahimahullah Ta'ala, when he had a layover in Mexico City. He was on his way back from Guatemala, going back to the US, and he even had the opportunity to hold some short programs. He even met with the new converts of that time, and basically now more recently in 2014, with the grace of Allah and with the permission and with prayers of Hazur Anwar Ayatullah Ta'ala bin Nasir Aziz, once again we were able to establish the Jamaat here in Mexico, when a small group of Mexicans converted, did Bai'at in a city towards the southern part of Mexico, which is called Merida. And now in these last 5-6 years, Jamaat running its missions in 4 different cities of Mexico. And of course, people are very receptive, very open-minded. They do not oppose it right out. Usually, which is what we usually see in different parts of the world. And now we also have some efforts as to training some of our members here in Mexico to serve the Jamaat as muallimeen. And we think that this would help the Jamaat to expand into different parts of the country, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Murabbi Sahib, of course, it's difficult times for everyone during this COVID pandemic. How is Mexico holding up during this time? How are people in Mexico dealing with this?
The situation with the pandemic, like in many developing countries, is very challenging. or countries that are not so advanced as some countries of Europe or some countries of North America. So it just doesn't give that opportunity to the people to shut down or to go into lockdown for a longer period of time. I mean, it's just not possible. And not many have the opportunity or have the option of working from home. And many people live from hand to mouth. And that is why life has been going on pretty much as usual. Everybody's required to use a face mask and use a hand sanitizer everywhere before they enter into any establishment. So that is they're trying in that way. But at the moment, Mexico rates third with the number of deaths. So Mexico is struggling at the moment. But the vaccination has also started, so hopefully the situation should get better, should improve, inshallah.
Inshallah. Murabi Sahib, how is this whole situation affecting the preparations for Ramazan? How will that affect how the Jamaat is going to experience Ramazan this year?
So basically, usually all the activities, the regular activities change during the month of Ramadan, and everything is focused on Ramadan. And even more with the pandemic, right? The situation is very different. We will continue to have our, like we did last year as well when the pandemic was going on, Darsul Quran on daily basis using online platforms. And then also continuing some of our other activities that are geared towards new converts. Yashmal Quran classes, Salat class, activities like these. So those will still continue, but of course using online platforms.
Okay. This is obviously a blessing that we have all of these means to continue with our work, mashallah. Murabi Sahib, obviously during the pandemic we can also not travel to Mexico and experience it this way, but maybe there are some culinary tips that you can give us. What is an interesting or a typical dish for Mexico that maybe our viewers can try at home for iftar or for maybe even sahri?
Yes, definitely. In Mexico, every state has their own dishes, but the base of these dishes is always the tortilla, or some of our viewers might have heard it, the word tortillas. So that is made with corn, and that is always used in the dishes in one way or the other. And basically, I think the most convenient dish for the members to try at home will be the tacos, which are very famous here in Mexico, very easy to make, and I think abroad as well, in other countries as well. This dish is very famous. It is very simple. You just take two slices or two pieces of tortillas and put any sort of cooked meat, goat meat or chicken or fish or anything, and then garnish it with some vegetables or with some, as they call it here, salsas, and that should be a very wonderful dish for the members to try at home.
Okay. Jazakallah, that sounds delicious. Jazakallah, Murabi Sahib, for this insight into the life in Mexico and obviously also this dish. And dear viewers, if you want to try a taco at home, if you want to learn how to make it, my dear brother Atal Bhai, he has tried his own skills on making some tacos and obviously has a recipe for you at home as well.
The dish what I'm going to prepare today is called tacos, and it is one of the most popular dishes in Mexico. Now, there are many variations of tacos. You have tacos with minced meat, you have tacos with chicken, you have tacos suadero, which is cooked slowly in fat. And one of the easiest way to prepare tacos is carne asada. Carne asada means grilled meat, and we're going to prepare carne asada tacos today. Dear viewers, well, this dish takes a lot of preparations because there are so many items, there are so many other things you have to prepare for this dish, but I can assure you it is worth all the effort. So first what we're going to do is we're going to take the meat. What I've chosen now is entrecote meat, steak, and normally what you can do is you can use flank from beef, which is from the belly portion, or you can use entrecôte. Just make sure that you have the tender parts of beef. And now what we're going to do is we are going to put a marinade on the beef. You have two possibilities. Either you can choose the marinade, what I'm going to show you today, or just leave it as it is, and at the end when you grill the meat, sprinkle it with salt and pepper. So it's up to you. But now I've chosen the marinade. So first of all, we're going to take a bunch of cilantro, only a bunch. Three large garlic cloves, minced. One tablespoon cumin. 1 teaspoon light brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and of course pepper, also 1 teaspoon. A half cup of natural oil, then the zest and juice of 1 lime. Once you have peeled the zest, take the lime, cut it in half, and just make sure that you filter all the seeds out of it. If you're lucky, you get a quite seedless lime. The next ingredient, what I'm going to take, sounds a little bit odd, but trust me, it tastes good with it. It's soya sauce. Many of you will think, soya sauce, Asia, tacos, Mexico, how does it get together? It does. So, 2 tablespoons, not more, because we already have added the salt in it. Now give all the ingredients a nice stir. And then this step is a pre-preparation. So either you can do it for 4 hours or you can do it overnight. What we're going to do is we will take the meat, place it in a zipper bag like this, and then put in the marinade. Just mix it up. As I said, leave it in the fridge for a couple of hours or leave it overnight. It's up to you, but give it a little bit of time to soak up all the flavors and the ingredients. So what I did, I already marinated the meat a night before, and this is how it looks. Now what we're going to do is grill the meat. So now we will take the meat, set the pan on high flame, and grill the meat on both sides for around about 3 minutes. So high flame. Once you have flipped the meat, just take the rest of the marinade, pour it over, and let it cook with the meat. Meanwhile, we will prepare the guacamole. For the guacamole, I'll take avocados, of course, the main ingredients for guacamole. We'll take 2 garlic cloves, a little bit of lime juice, a pinch of salt, a little bit of crushed pepper. Just make sure that your meat is not overcooked. If you think your meat is cooked, just turn off the heat. And here you go. Mix it up a little bit of yogurt. So optional, if you like to, you can also add some onions and tomatoes inside. It will give the guacamole a little bit of more flavor. So we just put a little bit of onions and a little bit of tomatoes inside, and then blend it. Depending on the texture of your guacamole, either you can leave it as it is, or if you want it a little bit thinner, then add a little bit of milk inside and then blend it again. So we got the guacamole, the steaks are ready. So once the steaks are grilled, take them from the heat, put them into a foil, and let them rest for a couple of minutes. Next step, what we're going to do is we will prepare the tortillas. Tortillas are small bread out of flour and corn flour, and this is where you actually assemble all the ingredients together later on. So therefore, I have prepared the dough for the tortillas. So for the tortillas, actually the traditional tortillas in Mexico are not the big wraps you see in the regular supermarket. They actually have this size, not more. So each and every taco you will eat later on will have not more than 3 bites. So tortilla dough, how to make it? Take 1 cup of regular flour, 1 cup of corn flour, a little bit of melted shortening, 1 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and lukewarm water. So first step, what you have to do is take the dry ingredients, mix them well together, and then assemble the wet ingredients and knead the dough to slight sticky and wet dough, and then after that keep it aside and let it rest for around about 20 minutes. And then after 20 minutes, just form small and plain tortillas, as I said, palm size, not more. Put it on a pan, heated pan. Make sure that they are not overcooked, otherwise what will happen is they will crack up when you fill the tortillas with the stuffing. So still they have to be a little bit fluffy and soft. Dear viewers, now to the final showdown. As you can see, I have prepared all the ingredients which you will need to get the perfect taco. So first of all, we will take the tortilla, put it aside, take some of the meat, cut it into slices. As you can see, it is tender and juicy. Okay, then take a little bit of guacamole, spread it over your tortilla, take the meat, put it on, then cilantro. Cilantro is the most important ingredient in the tacos. You cannot have enough cilantro in your taco. So take a cilantro, be generous with it, a little bit of chopped onion, a little bit of chopped tomatoes, if you like to, spring onions, lime, squeeze a little bit of lime. And now, dear viewers, let me introduce you to 2 of my friends. First of all, the grilled pineapple and jalapeno sauce, which is made with 2 cups of grilled pineapple. It is important that you take the grilled pineapple because through the grilling of the pineapple, you will also extract the sweetness and also the tanginess of the pineapples. 1 cup of chopped jalapenos. If you don't find jalapenos, take green chilies. 6 to 7 cloves of garlic, 2 tablespoons lemon juice, 1 tablespoon salt, 1 tablespoon grounded black pepper, 2 cups of white vinegar. The vinegar is important to keep the sauce preserved several weeks after the preparation. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 cup sweet onion, put it all in the blender, mix it, and off you go. So a little bit of this green pineapple. Next, I would like to introduce you to the red habanero sauce. So for those who like it a little bit more spicier, I have this fella here. For the red habanero sauce, you take 3 cups of apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 tablespoon Italian parsley, 1 tablespoon salt, 1 tablespoon ground black pepper, 1 cup sun-dried tomatoes, 1.5 cup red bell pepper, 1 cup sweet onions, 6 to 7 cloves of fresh garlic, and then 1 or 2 habaneros. If you like it spicier, take the Trinidad Scorpion, or even spicier, sky is the limit. So now put this spicy sauce on your taco. And now the most favorite street food of Mexico and beyond Mexican borders is ready to explore in my mouth. I will enjoy it. I hope the viewers will do too. Assalamu alaikum.
It's really delicious. And moving on to spiritual sustenance, if you are looking for interesting books to read that can further you in your studies of the Islam, then we have a suggestion for you in our book corner. Murabi Sahib, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Nasir Sahib, Jazakumullah. Welcome viewers, once again we are here in book corner, and today we have another book of the Prophet Muhammad, Ijaz-e-Ahmadi. For last couple of days, as you know, we were discussing Haqiqatul Wahi, the book where Hazur has mentioned hundreds of his signs which God has shown to prove his truthfulness. But today's book in itself is a sign that God has shown to prove the truthfulness of the Prophet Muhammad. There is a very peculiar background of this book. In 1902, there was a debate between Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis in Mud, a small town in the district of Amritsar. In this debate, Hazrat Maulana Sarwar Shah Sahib represented Jamaat-e-Ahmadiyya, and from the opposing side, Maulvi Sanaullah of Amritsar was taking lead. Among many other false accusations, he claimed that God has not shown one single sign for the truthfulness of the Prophet Muhammad. This debate took place in October 1902, and among many other false accusations, Maulvi Amritsari insisted that the Prophet Muhammad had not shown ever one single sign from God for his truthfulness. This is very strange because by then, Prophet Muhammad had already published Nuzulul Masih, where he had pointed out and written clearly 150 signs that God had shown for his truthfulness. And not only that, he had provided full detail of those signs, he also listed the witnesses. When Maulvi Sanaullah Amritsari was alleging the lack of signs from the God, he was asked if he was so sure about his accusation, why he had not yet provided and accepted the challenge to produce a book with the same merits as of Ijazul Masih, a miraculous book written in Arabic by the Prophet Muhammad in 70 days, which he said was not actually written in 70 days. Rather, it took Prophet Muhammad, according to him, more than 2 years, and he had been provided help by his followers. When later the Prophet Muhammad was told about these allegations, Hazur wrote yet another poem and named it Al-Qasida Al-Ijaziyya, a miraculous poem. This is actually a very long poem with some exceptional high poetic merits. And Prophet Muhammad has written this poem in 7 days with the full translation and published it and sent it to the Maulvi Sanaullah Amritsari. And Hazur challenged Maulvi Sanaullah Amritsari to produce a poem similar to this poem with such high exceptional language with poetic merits. And if he produced a poem like that, next 20 days, though it took Hazur only 7 days to write that poem with his translation, print it, publish it, and send it to Maulvi Sahib. But Hazur gave Sanaullah Amritsari 20 days, And not only that, Hazur gave him permission to seek help from his fellow scholars. And Hazur asked him that if he ever produced a poem of such merits, in next 20 days, Hazur would award him 10,000 rupees. Not only 10,000 rupees, but Hazur also said that would also prove that he was not sent from God. But it's been 120 years now, and since then, nobody has ever dared to produce a poem with that beauty, with such exceptional language that can merit and counter that poem of Hazrat Masih Maud can first-hand experience a sign of God, a miracle, because this is what this book is all about. The poem was translated into Urdu when the book was first published by Hazrat Masih Maud, and now this book, along with his this long poem, has also been translated into English. Please read it and experience how God has proven the truthfulness of the promised Messiah. Jazakumullah. Nasir, back to you.
Jazakallah for this reading suggestion. Dear viewers, moving on to our next segment, the health segment. And for this, I have Dr. Wajahat Varesh Sahib with me. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, Dr. Sahib. Dr. Sahib, we want to talk about the cold and the flu, and obviously during the month of Ramadan, this is something that every Muslim wants to avoid, as we want to benefit from this month as best as possible, and the last thing that we want is to fall ill. Now, what can we do to avoid as best as possible to fall ill from the cold or from the flu?
First of all, which is nowadays also very important, is to practice good hygiene, especially washing your hands and do disinfection. Secondly, eat healthy food, which includes vegetables, fruits. In short, add color in your meal. And in Ramadan, do not eat too much, avoid oily food. Hazrat Aziz reminded us a few weeks ago in an online mulaqat to keep our Sahr and Iftar simple. And this way we should also follow and do it in our Ramadan. The next point is to get enough sleep. The body needs to refresh, and in Ramadan you should also go early to bed to wake up in time for Tahajjud prayers. Keep moving and do exercise to have a healthy body and a strong immune system. Even during Ramadan, this is important. Another point, which is very important in my point of view, is mental health. In the Holy Quran, it is said, "Allah bi zikrillahi tatma'innul qulub." Truly, only in the remembrance of Allah, the hearts do find peace. And with our daily 5 prayers and Tahajjud prayers, we have a lot of advantages for our body and our mental health. In conclusion, Salat, including the ritual ablution, is also very helpful in prevention of different diseases. And that is the beautiful teaching of Islam. In every commandment in the Holy Quran, there are so many blessings. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah, Dr. Sahib. I think there are a lot of points to note, especially considering getting enough sleep and eating healthy food. I think this is a common mistake that people make. Now, there's another question that sometimes arises in my mind during the month of Ramazan. Obviously, the commandments of in the Holy Quran, they are very obvious, that if you are ill, if you are sick, that you shouldn't fast, that you should abstain from fasting. But the question that arises in my mind, at what point am I sick? At what point am I ill? Does a runny nose already qualify as being sick? Do I have to abstain from fasting? What would you say from a medical standpoint?
Yes, Jazakallah. As you already mentioned, in the Holy Quran, it is clearly written that if you are ill, then you should not fast. And we should follow this commandment. In my point of view, if you have just running nose and otherwise you feel good, then you should continue with fasting. But everyone has to do this decision on his own. And if you're not sure, you should go to your family doctor and ask him. And if he or she recommends you to avoid fasting, then you should follow this.
Jazakallah, Dr. Saib, for this interesting and obviously important insight and these tips. Dear viewers, please keep in mind what Dr. Saib just said at the ending. Obviously, we can just talk about some outlines, some guidelines on what to note and what to do and maybe don't do. But obviously, if you are suffering from different symptoms, you should seek out medical attention and you should go to your doctor, ask them for their advice, definitely. Dear viewers, this concludes not just the health segment, but also today's episode of Ramazan with MTA. Tomorrow, there's going to be another episode of Ramazan with MTA from another country, so definitely tune in for that as well. From us, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
रूहों में उतरती